I never thought I'd be the kind of man who got played. At 55, I had built a solid life, comfortable home, stable career, and a retirement plan that most men my age envied. I wasn't rich, but I was steady, and that's what I thought Lisa loved about me. She was 23 years younger, smart, beautiful, full of life. When we met, she told me she was tired of immature men, that she wanted stability, wisdom, a real man. I believed her. For 2 years, I gave her everything. A home, security, love. I ignored the whispers about how a woman like her wouldn't settle for a man like me. I wanted to believe our love was real. But then, things changed. It started with the late nights at work. "My boss is keeping me longer," she'd say, texting me at midnight about a last-minute meeting. Then came the sudden elegance. Lisa always dressed well, but suddenly she was wearing expensive heels, designer bags, things I hadn't bought her. And the worst part, the distance. When I touched her, she barely reacted. When I spoke, she was glued to her phone. And when I asked what was wrong, she smiled, a fake, practiced smile that no longer reached her eyes. A part of me knew. I just didn't want to believe it. Until the night I found the text. A message flashed on her laptop screen as I walked past. "Boss, can't wait for tonight. Your husband's still clueless." My stomach dropped. Clueless? I wasn't clueless anymore, and they had no idea what was coming next. I stood there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. The words burned into my mind. I wanted to believe it was a joke, a misunderstanding, but deep down, I already knew the truth. I had known it for weeks. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the messages. And there it was, weeks of texts, late-night rendezvous, inside jokes, her boss, Matthew, telling her how much he loved the way she dressed just for him, telling her how much better she deserved, telling her that I was too old, too slow, too safe. I gritted my teeth. My stomach churned, a mix of rage and nausea. I felt like a fool. I had given Lisa everything. I trusted her. I believed in her. And here she was, throwing it all away for a man who saw her as nothing more than a passing thrill. I heard the door unlock. Lisa walked in, smiling like nothing was wrong. She kissed my cheek, an empty, mechanical gesture. She tossed her bag on the counter, pulled out her phone, and typed something. I knew exactly who she was texting. I didn't confront her immediately. No, I wanted to see how far she would take this. So, I played along. I pretended nothing was wrong. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. "How was work?" She barely looked at me. "Long, exhausting. Matthew's pushing everyone hard." Matthew, first name basis. Now, I clenched my jaw. She didn't even realize that I knew. That night, I waited until she was asleep. Then I took her phone. The final proof was right there. A photo of the two of them, her sitting on his lap, kissing him. A text from him, saying, "Wish you were here," instead of with that old man. And her reply, "Soon, very soon." I exhaled slowly, my vision blurring with rage. She wasn't just cheating, she was planning to leave me. And she had no idea that I was one step ahead of her now. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my coffee, as Lisa walked in. She looked carefree, smiling, humming to herself as she poured her coffee, checking her phone with a smirk, probably waiting for a text from him. I couldn't hold it in any longer. "How long?" She froze, just for a second, barely noticeable, but I saw it. Then she turned to me with a practiced expression of confusion. Fake, rehearsed. What do you mean?" she asked, taking a sip of her coffee, playing innocent. I slid her phone across the table. I read everything. For a moment, there was silence. Then, instead of looking guilty, she smiled. A slow, amused smile. "So, you finally figured it out?" My hands clenched into fists. "That's all you have to say?" She shrugged, setting her cup down. "What do you want me to say, Richard?" "How about, 'I'm sorry,'" I snapped, my voice shaking with rage. She let out a soft chuckle, chuckled, like this was some joke to her. "Richard," she said, shaking her head. "You're a good man, stable, reliable, safe." I narrowed my eyes, and that's a bad thing. She sighed, crossing her arms. "You were never supposed to be a forever thing. I needed security, and you gave it to me. But come on, you're pushing 60. Matthew is successful, powerful, exciting." My stomach twisted. She wasn't even denying it. She took a slow step closer, her voice soft and condescending. "I was going to tell you soon, you know, but I didn't want to hurt you." I let out a cold laugh. "Oh, you didn't want to hurt me. You've been sleeping with your boss behind my back for months, and you didn't want to hurt me." Her eyes flashed with irritation, as if she was tired of the conversation, like I was inconveniencing her. Then she delivered the final blow. Look, Richard, you'll be fine. You've got your retirement, your little life. You'll find some nice lady your age and settle down, but I don't want that. She walked to the door, grabbing her purse. I'm leaving. I stared at her. Just like that? She turned, raising an eyebrow. What do you expect me to do? Cry? Beg for forgiveness? I stayed silent. Lisa smirked. You're too old to start over, but I'm not. And with that, she walked out the door. I sat there, staring at the empty space where she stood. She thought she had won. She thought she was walking into a better life. She had no idea that I was about to destroy everything she left me for. Lisa was gone. She walked out without hesitation, and as if the last 2 years of our marriage meant nothing. No tears, no guilt, just a smug little smirk, like she had won. I sat in this silence of our home, staring at the coffee cup she left behind. The smell of her perfume still lingered in the air. I let it burn into my memory. I wanted to remember this moment, the moment she thought she had beaten me. But Lisa made one mistake. She underestimated me. I knew exactly where to start. Lisa's boss, Matthew Carter, was the type of man who thought he was untouchable. A rich, arrogant executive who used power like a weapon. He saw people as chess pieces, disposable, replaceable, and Lisa, she was just his latest pawn. But even powerful men have weaknesses, and I was going to find his. I spent the next week doing my homework. Matthew ran a multi-million-dollar real estate firm. He had dozens of properties across the city, and he had a history of shady business deals. It didn't take long to find a crack in his empire. Buried in online reports, I found several lawsuits, ones he had quietly settled, employees he had fired unfairly, investors he had scammed with inflated property values. It was all there, hidden but not invisible. But the real jackpot? A whistleblower report. Apparently, one of his employees had reported him for financial fraud, but the case mysteriously disappeared before it reached the courts. I had everything I needed. I just had to push the right buttons. Lisa and Matthew weren't shy about their affair. They were already attending events together, Lisa on his arm, acting like his perfect new trophy. They thought I was just the old fool she left behind. They had no idea I was watching. I reached out to a contact, a journalist friend who owed me a favor. You want a scandal? I've got one for you, I said. I handed over everything. Financial documents, whistleblower complaints, fraudulent deals. And then I made sure Matthew's business partners saw it first. I sent an anonymous tip to his investors, board members, and legal team. I didn't need to lift a finger. Matthew's empire was about to collapse under its own weight. It didn't take long. 2 days later, the headlines hit. Real estate tycoon under investigation for fraud. Whistleblower breaks silence on Matthew Carter's corruption. Investors back out as criminal charges loom. Matthew's perfect little world was crumbling. But the best part, Lisa had no idea she was standing next to a sinking ship. She left me for a man who was about to lose everything. And soon, she would realize she bet on the wrong future. The news spread like wildfire. Matthew Carter, the same smug, powerful executive who stole my wife, was now the center of a financial scandal. I watched as his world crumbled in real time. One by one, his investors pulled out, his business partners distanced themselves, and his company's stock plummeted overnight. But the real humiliation? The moment when the police arrived at his office. It was all over the news, officers escorting him out in handcuffs, reporters swarming him like vultures. Matthew Carter arrested for financial fraud and corporate misconduct. Real estate tycoon facing years in prison. Investors demand answers. Anonymous source exposed years of corruption. Who was behind it? I smiled to myself. That anonymous source was me. And the best part, Lisa was right there in the middle of it. At first, she stood by his side. She attended press conferences, smiled at cameras, tried to act like everything was fine. But then reality hit. Matthew's assets were frozen, his luxury cars gone, his $1 million estate up for foreclosure. And Lisa, she had tied herself to a sinking ship. I knew it was coming, the moment she would realize her mistake. And right on cue, one night, I got a text. Lisa, hey, can we talk? I almost laughed. After everything, she thought she could just waltz back into my life. But I wasn't done yet. I agreed to meet her, but not at our old house. I chose a quiet cafe, a place where we used to go when we were still happy. Lisa walked in, looking different. No designer bags, no expensive jewelry. She sat across from me, eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Regret. Richard, she hesitated, then sighed. I messed up. I said nothing, just sipped my coffee. You were right about him, she continued. He used me. The moment things got bad, he shut me out. He's fighting for his own survival, and I have nothing. I tilted my head. Nothing. That's funny. You left me because I didn't have enough. Remember? She swallowed hard. I was wrong. Silence hung between us. Then, finally, she asked, "Can we fix this?" I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "Lisa, you didn't just betray me. You mocked me, humiliated me, walked out like I was nothing." Her lower lip trembled. I was stupid. I thought I wanted something better. I nodded. "And did you find it?" Tears welled in her eyes. "No." I sat back, exhaling. Then I smiled. "Good luck, Lisa." I stood up, leaving her sitting there, alone, just like she left me. I didn't need revenge. I had already won. As I walked out of that cafe, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. Lisa thought she had won when she walked out of my life. She thought she was trading up, stepping into a better future. But she learned the hard way. Some doors, once closed, never open again. I could have taken her back. I could have let her crawl back into my life, played the fool one last time. But I wasn't that man anymore. I had loved blindly, but now I saw clearly. I realized something that day. Revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about watching them destroy themselves. Lisa and Matthew had dug their own graves. All I had to do was stand back and watch. And now, as I walked toward my car, I smiled. I wasn't broken. I wasn't bitter. I was free. And if there's one thing I've learned from this, it's this. The people who betray you expect you to crumble. They expect you to beg, to fight for them, to prove your worth. But the best revenge, walking away without ever looking back. I drove off, leaving the past behind me. 'Cause my life, it was just getting started. If this story made you think about the masks people wear in relationships, hit that like button so more people can see it. Drop a comment. Have you ever discovered someone wasn't who they pretended to be? How did you handle that heartbreak? Let's share our stories of healing and strength. And if you want more stories that might just save you from making the same mistakes I did, subscribe and check out the next video.